holy old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression, regression. The best don't.
Impact Wrestling took place September the 9th, 2021. And the show was just a show. I mean, it was better than usual, I would say. But let's get right into it. Let's not waste our time. Tasha Steelz wrestled Rosemary, and Rosemary wins. She wins with the spear. Tasha was very aggressive, but of course it wasn't enough. I'm kind of over the spear as a finish. It seemed like just 8 people use the spear as a finish now. And it's across all the different promotions. You just see spears everywhere. I think you see a spear in every other match now. It's almost like an Irish whip. It's like the DDT. Like the DDT used to be a finish. Now you see like springboard, hurricanrana DDTs. And now you're going to see you're going to start seeing people freaking out the spear. You already see people doing the spin with the spear. It's too much. During the post-match, Savannah Evans knocked Rosemary down. This allowed Tasha to steal the belts, so they stole the belts from him. Yeah, that was a thing. Whatever. So then we get the story for the night. The story for the night was that Ace Austin wanted to get Christian an opponent for next week, saying that Christian needs to have a warm-up. Scott D'Amore then counters by saying, it's going to be a 10-man tag, and that Ace needs to go pick 3 guys because it's him and Madman Fulton, and that Christian would have to pick up 4 guys. So that was essentially the story throughout the night. Ace Austin immediately went to Brian Myers, who was the last person Christian wrestled, asked him to be his partner. He had a short conversation with Sam Beal, Sam Beal was trying to get him to buzz off. He told him that the casting call was last week. Ace Austin had to remind him that he is the number 1 contender, and that Sam Beal should know who he is. Anyway, Brian Myers accepted the deal, and so it was now 3. The last 2 members of his team will come later in the show as Moose and Morrissey offered to volunteer to join the team because they heard that Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan might be joining Christian's team. So Christian went about picking his team together, and his first stop was Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander was talking to Gia Miller about being the best of the best, and again, wanting to be the best, you have to beat the best. Christian asked him, hey, you want to be your partner? I want you to be my partner. Josh Alexander told this story about growing up not far from Christian, and Christian's success, inspired him to trace this wrestling dream. And then he said he would be honored to be Christian's partner, but said that he would be more honored to wrestle Christian for the title one day. The next person he would pick up will be after the contract signing. Josh Alexander and Chris Sabin signed the contract. It was just a contract signing. Just 2 guys signed the contract. There was no shenanigans. Sabin talked about he respected Alexander, but this was about his legacy. Josh says, hey, you won the title 8 times. I mean, you've lost it 8 times. Nobody's beat me yet. I don't see you doing the same thing. They shook hands because Scott D'Amore wanted them to shake hands. And then Josh and Scott D'Amore left, and Christian asked Chris Sabin to be his partner afterwards. And Sabin said yes. Later, Christian talked to Eddie Edwards, and this was very interesting because Eddie Edwards was talking about how he got jumped before, and he was ready this time. He's ready for his match with Moose, which is the main event, and he was completely ready for it. Callihan interrupted, wanted him to reconsider about fighting these 2 guys alone, which is Morrissey and Moose. He wanted him to think about that. And Eddie Edwards was being very obtuse and said, absolutely not. I will not be on any team that involves Sami Callihan. I don't need you. I don't want you. Christian walked up and asked both of them to sign on to be partners on his team. Sami Callihan agreed. Eddie Edwards, again, being very obtuse, said, hey, if Sami Callihan's going to be there, I ain't going to be there. So you get to make a choice. Is it going to be him or me? And that's kind of the story of what was going on during the main event. The main event, Moose versus Eddie Edwards. Moose wins via the spear. Jesus. They're doing their very best to make Moose look weak. Because Morrissey had to save him. After he got hit with a Boston Knee Party, Morrissey had to put Moose's foot on the rope. In any event, both teams come running out to the ring as Morrissey and Moose beat up on Eddie Edwards. Christian and his team came out there to help, which led Ace Austin and his team to come out there and help. And because the numbers advantage favored the heels, Alicia Edwards ran to the ring with a kendo stick. Then she whacked Morrissey in the back with it. He grabbed her and was ready to chokeslam her, and then Sami Callihan made the save. Sami Callihan saved Alicia Edwards, and that is what gave him Eddie Edwards respect. So I'm now Eddie Edwards will team with Christian and Sami Callihan. So the teams are, the matches next week is a big 10-man tag. I think that that's a very good idea to do a 10-man tag. Basically because I think 10-man tags aren't something that happens a lot on television. And it's a good way to utilize a bulk of the talent that you already use and then open up TV time for other people. That's why I think WWE is really, especially WWE, because AEW at least does trios matches. WWE loses a lot by focusing so heavily on the one-on-one match. Sometimes you could just make a 8-man tag or something like that just to get people on television. It's a good way to spread out time, get people on television, and get something that can pop the crowd. Guys can go out there and do a bunch of flips and a bunch of jumps and everything like that. And then you can also still have guys in there to tell the story of the match. And how we got to this point was very good storytelling, because Eddie Edwards does not want to team with Sami Callihan. He doesn't like him. But he keeps getting into these situations where Callihan keeps having to save him. And in this situation, he showed him the utmost respect, because you didn't have to come out here and save my wife, but you did. So he found a way. They wrote this story in a way where Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards comes together at the end. And they're still not buddies. The crowd is chanting for them to hug it out, and they're like, nah. But they kind of, I think they both had pipes or something like that. They both kind of banged their pipes together, like a male nod of respect, like kind of like a thank you and I respect you and that kind of thing. So this was good. The teams are solid, I guess. I'm sure they'll find some way to beat the heels. It'll probably be Madman Fulton, because he never wins. So that was pretty much the main vein of the show. Violent by Design had a segment where they talked about re-brainwashing Rhino. Eric Young says that that keeps people tell you that there's spirits above and below, but there's only him. And when he saw his reflection staring back at him, he smiled and said that evil is a necessary good, and that Rhino had suffered enough, so that he's going to baptize him once again in the holy waters of change. Apparently, we're led to believe that Rhino was locked in a dungeon by himself for a week. That's interesting. I like Violent by Design. I like cults. Cults are pretty fucking cool in wrestling. It almost always works. I can't think of a time that a cult idea didn't work. Well, maybe the James Storm cult. Maybe that didn't work out. Let me put some thought into it. Let me know if you thought the James Storm cult worked. The second match on the show was Carl Anderson defeating Rich Swann in a bunkhouse brawl. This match was essentially 2-on-1 because Gallows and Anderson. Gallows was, pretty respectful through most of the match, if I could be honest, because he didn't really do much of anything. He just kind of stood outside the ring. And then they also distracted the ref to cheat, even though this match was no disqualification. The kind of weapons they had wooden planks, they had tables, they had garbage pan lids. The finish came with Gallows pulling Swann's leg while he was on the top rope. He was trying to put Carl Anderson through a table. Carl Anderson climbed up to the top rope, did a diamond cutter off the top of the table, through the table. I don't believe the table broke. Rich Swann got pinned. So Rich Swann is now fighting these guys alone. Very interesting. Carl Anderson wins a match, which was interesting because it very rarely happens. All right, so next segment was Mickie James talking to Gia Miller. He talked about Empower being her first match in a year. And it was a very empowering moment for her because, she got to be the executive producer. And it was a great weekend that Deonna Purrazzo stole from her by attacking her. And it said that, Deonna Purrazzo is looking to make a name for herself. She's been very successful, but she's not going to make a name of herself off of me. And that it's not just business anymore. This thing has become personal because she takes wrestling and her career very personally. And she says that Deonna Purrazzo forgot what hardcore country is. And that there's a difference between Mickie James and hardcore country. And she's going to show Deonna Purrazzo that difference. And, I'm interested in this. I'm always interested in Mickie James wrestling. She's one of my favorite female wrestlers. She's pretty good. To say that she's just as good as ever, it would be false, but she's still credible. I still believe that, Mickie James can win the title from Deonna Purrazzo, even though it's not likely. I still believe it because, she isn't that far off the beaten path. And I think that Deonna Purrazzo could be able to pull a good match out of Mickie James. I'm still kind of tentative because of the last few matches Mickie had in WWE before they took her off TV and put her on commentary booth. I'm still kind of like she had a decent match on NWA 73, so maybe this will be good too. We'll see. So Matthew Raywalt did a promo where he talked about art. That art comes from within, and what we do in the ring is art. And that Trey Miguel is an artist, and he's on the precipice of a masterpiece. And that he has to experience the art of Trey Miguel next week. I'm like, whatever. Rohit Raju cut a promo after he attacked Chelsea Green the previous week. Said that he would apologize for what happened to Chelsea Green, but he looked into Chelsea Green's eyes and she wanted it. She wanted a real man to take over, and that Matt Cardona is hiding behind her skirt. And I was just kind of like, I don't believe this. Sometimes you have to be believable in the role. No, I'm not buying it. I don't buy it. I don't buy Rohit Raju as the tough guy, the crazy guy. Nah. I don't know. I'm surprised he's still around, if we're being honest. I just don't see this guy, especially with all the pushes that he's had. Rohit is one of my least favorite guys on the Impact roster. They've done a good job of shedding a lot of the guys that I hated on Impact, like Reno Scum, like AC Romero and Larry D. Like, those guys I just felt like had absolutely no purpose. And they weren't even good in skits. They really did a good job of getting rid of those guys. But Rohit is still there. The third match, Chris Bay versus Dave Finlay. This was, I guess, the match of the night. They had a pretty solid match. Juice Robinson ended up distracting Chris Bay. That led Dave Finlay to beat him via roll-up. Then they got some help from Hikuleo. Hikuleo made his Impact debut. The guy who needs to be an Impact, if we're being honest. Hikuleo needs more work. There's nothing wrong with him being an Impact, I can tell you that. And Hikuleo and Chris Bay beat up Juice Robinson and David Finlay. And they smashed Juice Robinson's leg with a chair. Interesting stuff. So, Swingers Palace took place. The Swing Man thought he was going to get picked for the 10-man tag, but it was not to be. TJP brought No Way and Falaba to Swingers Palace. Falaba, of course, talked about how the Swingers Palace made him homeless because he had a gambling problem. But this was the first time No Way had ever been there. And TJP said this is the best illegal casino in Nashville. No Way said the place is like a bootleg Caesar's Palace, which got Swingman all uptight and said, Senor Hernandez is not going to put up with this slander, You can't come into the Swingman Swingers Palace and then talk shit. He then threatened to throw out No Way and TJP and Falaba. And No Way called it a dollar store or Dollar Tree casino. And they got thrown out. TJP didn't care about getting thrown out, even though it was his idea to go there in the first place. Kimber Lee, who is recruiting people, is now spying again. I'm guessing she's going to try to get Alicia Edwards, which would probably be a better use of Alicia Edwards. But they already got Brandy Lauren. I'm kind of thinking about what are they building here? Like, it's obviously going to be some kind of coven. And I'm guessing this is what's going to end up being the big feud. It's going to be Su Yung and her minions against Rosemary and Havoc. I like that idea. I just want to know how many minions are we going to have. Because I think 4 is fine. Well, 3 is fine, right? You got Kimberly, Brandy Lauren, and if they get Alicia Edwards, that'd be 3. I think that'd be good, right? That's to give the numeric advantage to Su Yung and her team. Okay, that's fine. I like that idea. But TJP wasn't done from the night because he interfered in Steve Macklin versus Petey Williams, which was a match that took place, the 4th match on the show. The conga line, the cringe conga line, came to the ring as Petey Williams was winning. The music played and everything. It was really, really bad. And he was not paying attention. Petey Williams was not. He got hit with Macklin's finish and pinned. Then TJP shrugged and led the conga line away. Apparently, Petey Williams had done something to TJP on a previous episode that I don't remember because, it's Impact. Why dedicate more brain cells to it than I have to? All right, so outside of Chris Bay and David Finlay, I did think Rosemary and Tasha Steelz was okay. The Bunkhouse Brawl was actually not bad too. It was simple. It reminded me a lot of Impact. I didn't know Impact was PG. It felt like it was. Like there was no. It wasn't like super violent. Nobody got busted open or anything. I'm guessing they really tuned it down for TV. They just kept it quiet that they toned it down. Because, you see a bunkhouse brawl with no blood. It was like, okay. But it was also like no heavy artillery being used either. And it's also very weird for a bunkhouse brawl to be the 2nd match on the show and like not the main event or at least the 4th match. It was literally like, that was weird. But I really thought the show was fine. It was just fine. It was a passable show. I still think they need some players. They really need to get into sweepstakes for some of these people that's been released. They need to get in these sweepstakes, man. I don't know what their budget is like. They need to bend it a little bit. They need to do something. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe, and donate. And I'll talk to you guys later.